Hi, my name is Enda Murray. I'm the director of the Irish Film Festival. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by Colm Bairéad, director, Cleona Ní Chrualaoi, the producer, and Andrew Bennett and Michael Patric, the two of the performers in the film An Cailín Ciúin. Go dé mar atá sibh, tá fáilte roimh chuig an Austral anocht. Look, congratulations on a wonderful film. And I wanted to ask you first of all just to tell us a little bit about how the film came about.
Sure. Well, as you probably know, the film is an adaptation of a pre-existing work. So it's based on a story called Foster, written by Claire Keegan, who's really one of our great writers here in Ireland. She's a wonderful short story writer. And Foster it's essentially a long short story. And I read it for the first time in the summer of 2018. And it's, as I said, it's a short story essentially. So I read it in one sitting, and I just remember being just so moved by it. It was such an extraordinary experience to read Foster. It places you in the heart and the mind of this young girl in a way that's so that feels so empathetic and so compassionate, and just really heartrending. And I just, as I was reading it, I was seeing it as a film, and I just felt a very strong desire. Once I had finished it, I had this very strong, almost like panicked feeling that I wanted to adapt it to film, and just hoping that the rights would be available to do that. At the time, I was also, as I was reading it, I was at that point in time, I was looking for material to adapt to make an Irish language feature film, because there was a particular scheme that had been launched here in Ireland to develop and produce Irish language feature films. So I was kind of actively looking for material that would suit this particular scheme, and I could see a way that you could very easily sort of transplant the action of Foster, which is an English language text, how you could transplant that into an Irish language setting that would feel organic and authentic to an Irish audience in terms of reflecting the sort of social reality of the Irish language in this country and so forth. It was those two things. It was finding this particular piece of work, an extraordinary piece of work by Claire, and then the scheme that had just been launched, that felt like a real opportunity for us as a company, who had a great deal of experience working with TG Carr, the Irish language broadcaster. So it was those two pieces kind of came together just rather fortuitously.
Great. Cleona, do you want to talk a little bit about the putting together of the project, I suppose, from a producer's point of view?
So we actually began casting in October 2019. With our priority was to try and find the lead character, an actor for the role of Coit, who was 9 in the story in the film. And we started off originally, the story of An Cailín Ciúin is actually set in An Rhine, in the Gaeltacht of An Rhine in Waterford. So down there they speak a Munster dialect of Irish, and so we started out searching there for young actors all across Munster, from Kerry to Cork and Waterford, and then we decided to extend our search to further afield to Dublin and Galway and elsewhere. And I suppose we were searching really for the young actor for about 7 months, really. Like we had lots of physical auditions, and then COVID hit in March 2020. So we then had to cancel any in-person auditions and move to self-tape. And then luckily, we'd put a call out to all the Irish language primary schools here, the Gael schools as we call them. And we put a call out for audition tapes for young girls. And luckily for us, one day in May 2020, we got a very special tape in from a girl called Catherine Clinch from Rathmines in Dublin, and we were just blown away really by that tape. We immediately kind of felt we'd found the girl, and we'd been really worried before that we may not be able to find the perfect person for the role, but we just really fell on our feet then, when we found her. And then we in this time as well, we'd been searching for other cast as well, and for the roles of Eileen and Sean, the Couch's kind of foster parents in the film, and the mother and father characters as well. And we received a lot of audition tapes in as well from a lot of adult actors, and we stumbled across then Michael Patric and Andrew Bennett, who came recommended to us. And when they sent in their tapes, again, we were just so impressed by them, and we immediately called them in for a chemistry read and a physical audition with the young girl, Catherine Clinch. And I suppose we just knew from that moment on, when we brought everybody into the same room, there was a real chemistry there, and we just kind of felt, it just felt like they were the right combination for these roles. And I remember watching we filmed the auditions, and myself and Colm watched them later that evening, and we were so excited that we'd found really brilliant actors, and really felt they could embody these characters. And in a way it all came together quite magically or quite quickly in the end, when we just we decided we'd found the right people like Andrew Bennett and Michael and Carrie Crowley as well.
Yeah, I think you talked about what was it, a chemical reading, you said, to see is the chemistry right. I hadn't heard that term before. Andrew, do you want to tell us about your experience in the project? How did you come to be involved in the project?
I got an offer to self-tape at home at a time when nothing was going on in Ireland or in the world, I suppose. And so it was something to work hard on. And I was ringing my friend Cleona Ní Chrualaoi to help me with the Irish. I'm not a native Irish speaker. And so, yeah, I did the self-tape and then was amazed to be called back a second time. I didn't know Colm or Cleona at all. And I didn't know Catherine at all. And yeah, it was kind of surreal cycling down along the canal through a completely empty Dublin to this warehouse with people wearing masks and arrows on the floor. And it was really quite extraordinary, and everybody chatting away, and they're all fluent Irish speakers and they're all chatting away. And I'm wondering what I'm doing there. But, thank heavens they cast me, and yeah, it was an extraordinary experience. That whole COVID thing carried on into the filming. I think everybody who worked on it was very aware of how lucky they were. And I think that feeling shows in the film, that kind of gratitude that we had a job, not just the cast, but like all the crew. Everybody was very, very aware, that we were the lucky ones.
Michael, do you want to talk about your experience there getting involved?
Yeah, similar to what Andrew just said there. Got invited to do a self-tape, and then did some research into Foster and loved that story. And then got a call back to meet Colm and Cleona in person and read with Kate Nikananic, who plays Cod's mother in the film. And Colm was taping the audition, and that was a lot of fun. And then just waited, and thankfully got the job, and it worked out dates-wise. Yeah, just like Andrew said, it was a strange time to be auditioning, a strange time to be filming, but yeah, we had a lot of fun on it, and we felt like there was something special happening, and that's how it turned out.
Thanks. Colm, in your notes you talked about focusing on the little things and the restraint within the directing and telling the story simply. do you want to enlarge on that? Tell us a bit more about that. I suppose it's your approach to directing.
Yeah, well, I guess in terms of the whole question of restraint, that was really, that was sort of a response. I mean, so partly that would be kind of my own sensibility in terms of the kind of filmmaking that I really aspire towards, or that I really enjoy. That sort of films that don't kind of go out of their way to manipulate the audience, and that allow the audience room to sort of form their own opinion and to engage with the characters. But I suppose it was also a response to Claire Keegan's prose. You know, like she writes, she's a big believer. Actually, she talks about how she believes that when she finishes a work, that it's not actually finished. Like, she publishes it, but she believes that like the reader is the one who completes the work. And I always found that a really sort of intriguing and curious sort of philosophy to have. And I think the film is, you know, to some extent trying to mirror that in terms of the visual language of the film, and the you know, the economy and the sort of precision that you find in Claire's prose, I hope is somewhat reflected in terms of the sort of visual language of our film. But it was also an understanding that, you know, I mean, this is a film that's it's not about plot. Like, it's not about this happens, this happens, this happens. It's a very simplistic story. It's essentially, girl goes away, stays with some relatives, and comes home. Like, that's the plot of the film. So it was an understanding that it was actually it was an experiential thing. It had to be from this girl's point of view. You had to be experiencing this story through her. So it was really kind of doubling down on that and believing in the point of view of the film, and then again using that sort of restraint, and that's what I was taking from Claire's approach in terms of her prose, and applying that to this point of view of this young girl, and believing that even though there wasn't a plot, that if you can place an audience in this young person's shoes and have them feel what she's feeling, essentially, that's enough to compel an audience and to hold an audience. But then I suppose the restraint is also there because it's a story that you could, I think, quite easily slip into something quite mawkish or overly sentimental. And that was obviously something that we really wanted to avoid, because, well, and it's a strange thing in that, like, I'm talking about how, like, films shouldn't be manipulative and all of that, but, like, there's almost like a counter argument that, like, because the film itself is so restrained, that when it reaches its sort of climax, it's sort of all the more affecting for that. There's a kind of very cathartic, emotional sort of coda to the film, and in a strange way, that it's the restraint is actually slightly manipulative, and, you know, it's one of those ironies, I suppose, of you know, when you start to wade into you know, filmmaking and what it all means. But yeah, so I mean, it was a response to Claire's prose, and I suppose a desire to not, as I say, not allow the film to get too sentimental or too mawkish, you know.
Andrew, I was interested in the experience of shooting. It seemed to be during COVID and quite remote. Would that be right? The actual shoot itself?
Totally, yeah. And I think, you know, quite apart from Colm's genius, I think that played into our hands. That, you know, normally on a film set, between takes, there's going to be chit chat and, you know, talking about what happened in the pub the night before, or, you know, going to a festival in Galway at the weekend. But none of those things existed. There were no pubs, there were no festivals. So we were really kind of in An Cailín Ciúin boot camp. You know, it was the thing that was in your life. There was kind of more or less nothing else in your life at the time. And so that, like, you know, when you're shooting a film, when, like, you know, if Carrie and myself were doing a thing, we hadn't just come from chatting about, you know, something that we'd seen, you know, last night or done last night. We were straight back into being kind of Sean and Eileen. And I think that shows in the film. And And I think another thing, you know, everybody was masked up all the time, except obviously when we were filming, the actors took off the masks, and touch was, you know, limited. We weren't allowed to go around touching each other and kissing each other and, you know, doing actory things. But and that, you know, Irish people in 1981 weren't as tactile as people are now, and I think that, I mean, I'm sure, as I say, Colm would have kept an eye on it anyway, but that was very, you know, touch was rationed, so that when there is any physical contact in the film, you really, really notice it. You know, like the bath scene particularly, I think you really, I don't know if the word sensual or sensuous, but anyway, it's one of those things where you can feel, you know, the water and the heat and the nail brush on the toes and everything. So you really, I think COVID helped us from those points of view, you know.
Cleona, what are some of the successes that the film has garnered so far?
Yeah, well, I suppose our first big breakthrough was being selected for the Berlin Film Festival in February. And, you know, that was, to us at the time, it was an award in itself to make it into a major festival. And, you know, it's such a prestigious festival. And we all went over, and we had a ball over in Berlin. And then, you know, we came back, and 2 days later, we learned that we had won an award for a Grand Prix award in the Generation Plus category. So myself and Colm went back over to Berlin again to accept our award, and we won a special mention as well from the children's jury in Berlin. And after that, I suppose we got selected for the Dublin Film Festival. It was the first time an Irish language film had actually opened the festival, so that was in its 20-year history. So that was a huge honor for us, and we won an audience award at the festival, and we also won the best Irish film from the Dublin Film Critics Circle Awards. And then during that time as well, it was such a whirlwind of a time really for us. We got nominated for 10 IFTAs, and then we went on to win 7 of those, including Best Film, Best Director, and Best Actress. So yeah, it's quite astonishing, really, just, you know, to receive those accolades. You know, we didn't really expect any of that, you know, like we just kind of set out to make our film, and I suppose we knew we had something special. You know, at the time when we were filming, there was definitely something special happening, and when the rushes started coming through, we kind of felt there was something powerful at play, you know, and obviously the performances of all our key cast, you know, especially Catherine Clinch and Andrew and Carrie and Michael and Kate, you know, it was all just coming together really, really magically for us. And then since then, what else have we won? We recently actually played at Sydney Film Festival, where we met you, and we came third there with the top ranked non-Australian film as voted by the audience. And we recently played at Taipei Film Festival as well, where we won the Audience Choice Award. So we're just really delighted that the film is really moving people, and, you know, people are connecting with it, and it seems to be having a similar effect no matter where it's played, you know, all around the world, from Asia to Australia, you know, to the UK. And so hopefully we can continue this journey.
Absolutely. It was, I think it was very emotional. I was at the screening at Sydney Film Festival, and to get a standing ovation, I thought it was a really remarkable achievement. I'd love to sit and talk more, but we've run out of time, I'm afraid. But Gora Míle Maigad, thanks a million for taking the time to chat with us, and we look forward to taking the film to 4 cities in Australia, and maybe at some point we'll get you down here again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, best of luck with the festival, Enda.
Thanks very much. Gora Míle Maigad. Slán agus Bennett. Slán.